Love yourself. I don't even like myself sometimes. How am I supposed to love? What does that mean?
Hello, and welcome to Beyond the Glam. I'm your host, Rasha Goel. I'm so excited to be bringing you the stories and journeys of celebrities and creatives that go beyond the glamorous world that you're used to seeing. We'll be diving into how working in an industry that so many are passionate about impacts who they truly are. And today, I'm so thrilled to be talking to someone I've gotten to know over the past few years, who many of you are familiar with. Her face is pretty much everywhere, I'm going to say. Anjali Bhimani, it's so awesome to have you here.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be talking about this with you. We've been trying to make this happen for ages. And so thank you for being patient with
your busy schedule.
It's something.
Well, I'm so excited that we were able to get together and do this because I think there's a lot of beautiful stories here. Well, let me tell you a little bit about Anjali. Anjali Bhimani is an award-winning actress, best-selling author, and producer whose impressive career spans Broadway to feature films, television, video games, and animation. Television audiences will know her from Ms. Marvel, Dead to Me, and countless others, while gamers will instantly recognize her as the voice behind Symmetra in Overwatch and Rampart in Apex Legends, among many other iconic roles. Anjali is also the creator of the uplifting YouTube series and WSJ best-selling book, I Am Fun Size and So Are You, where she shares personal stories and interviews with fellow performers to inspire people to live bigger, more joyful lives. She's also the CEO of Road to Ithaca Press and Bad Auntie Entertainment, through which she has produced the adventure TTRPG series Daisy Quest, the short film Dolores, the upcoming B Word, and the recent live stream charity event, The Puppy Roll with Petco Live, which was so adorable. And of course, she's a human mama to Charlie the Wonder Dog.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Little Charlie, he's downstairs taking a nap, or I would totally show him off right now and make all the people who are listening want to run to YouTube or wherever the video is showing and see his adorable face. But yeah, they can see it other places. He's having a hard time being a star as well.
He is very cute. I was wondering why it's so quiet. Okay, so let's talk about the woman who does it all. Clearly very, very multi-talented. But Anjali, is there a particular area that you're more passionate about or that excites you?
You know, I think the reason that I don't choose is because it changes so often. It's sort of like, it's not even that it changes completely, but it's like, today I kind of feel more like this, and here I want to do more of this. And it's both, it both comes from a positive place and I'll admit, not a place of fear, but a place of like disaster management, that I like to do so many different things because, you know, when one lane is maybe not delivering in a way that I want to, whether creatively or just in you know, basic fulfillment or financially or any of that, there are always so many others that give me joy that I get to be a part of. And it certainly wasn't always this way. I wanted it to be this way, I think, from the beginning, but you know, my entire life has been a series of like, oh wait, I can do that. Okay. Or you're going to let me audition for this and hire me? Okay, that would be amazing. I would love to do that. But now it's also, you know, I used to get annoyed with myself thinking, oh, you're supposed to stay in one light. You're supposed to focus on one thing to be really good at it and just be really good at that one thing. And I never really, that was never really what I wanted to do. I always wanted to do a little bit of everything. And then, you know, nothing like a global pandemic or a giant strike to remind you that diversifying your creativity is not such a bad idea. So very long answer to a short question. No, I don't have one that like I love more than the rest. I think right now I am definitely spending more time in a lot of the gaming production that I do. Not so much video game as a tabletop gaming, which is much more like live improv or like collaborative storytelling. Because it's not, I don't want to call it live improv, even though it's improvised, because it's not like you're not waiting for the audience to tell you what to do. You're really improvising a story with the people that you're there with, which is a beautiful thing.
Ooh, that sounds fun and exciting.
So much fun. And if you had told 8-year-old me when I started playing Dungeons and Dragons that this would be part of the creative career that I get to be a part of, like I would have thought you were nuts. But here we are, and there's a giant explosion of both creativity and streaming and all of that, like the actual creations being made, but also people coming back to the games. And gaming in general, to me, whether you're playing a board game with your family or you're playing cards or you are automating your fitness or whatever, like the gamification of life is really, really fun to me.
And I love talking to you about it because, you could just feel the passion in your voice. And I
Yeah.
think for me, it's so exciting to think of this has been a part of your childhood.
Oh,
And now
yeah.
you're able to, as an adult, just, enjoy gaming and be a huge part of it. So talk
Yeah.
about your journey of getting into this world.
Well, I wish it was a sexier story in terms of how I came back to it. I started playing games when I was a kid because we play games as kids, right? We always played board games with the family, and then my brother introduced me to Dungeons and Dragons when I was 8 years old, and D and I are the same age, which is crazy. So it was a relatively new game on the scene at the time, but. So I played that, and then it was also computers were starting to be a really big thing. So I was playing on our little Apple II Plus and making games and playing on the Atari and all of that. And so that was already a part of my childhood just as recreation. And then I joke about this because I call it the dark days of gaming, because as I started to become more quote unquote serious, I thought I had to spend my time doing more serious things. And there's a really big part of me that, looking back at the journey, I can see I lost during that time, or I lost track of during that time. And the best way I have to explain it is I stopped being the hero of my own story. Because when you're playing games, no matter how tiny your character is, no matter how normal or average your character is, you're the one leading the story. You're the one telling the story with with the game interactively. You are in the story. And when I stopped playing games, somehow I started kind of listening to all the other voices outside, whether in the industry or in relationships or wherever, that were kind of giving me the like, well, you're really the sidekick, or you're really the minor role, or you're more like this. And inside I knew better, not because I think I'm a big deal, but because it's my life, And I think for all of us, it's not a big, lofty, selfish, self-centered thing to be like, no, I am the protagonist of my own story. That's definitively what the protagonist, like, that's what it is. It's you're the only person who's with you for 24 hours a day. So yeah, you are the protagonist of your own story. But I really just kind of lost my way in that sense. And I stopped having as much fun doing the things that ostensibly I was doing because I loved them. Acting became more of a chore and became more of a let me mold myself into 90 different positions to try to be the thing that they want, whoever they is, the ubiquitous they, whatever it was. And it was so the lane of gaming as part of the career and part of the journey came back when my agents, my voiceover agents, started sending me out on voiceover auditions, and some of them were games, and one of them was this beautiful game called Overwatch. And in Overwatch, I play an she's amazing. She's a South Indian architect, not architect, but she's an architect. So she builds things out of hard light, which is a technology in the game. She is on the spectrum. She is brilliant. She is powerful, and she's gorgeous. Like, if you look at her, like, she's just like, it's objectively, she's hot. So you add all of these things together, this beautiful, powerful, brilliant, challenged, yes, by her neurodiversity, but not stopped by it. She doesn't use it as an obstacle. She finds a way to use the things that her brain can do differently than other people, to use that as an asset as much as it is an obstacle. So you hear in the stories, in the lore of the game itself, you see how she has dealt with both. And that for me, like even the year it came out and the year following were a crazy, extraordinary year. My father passed away at the end of the year that it came out. And my father had been one of my greatest champions in every way in life. My parents and my brother just like I lucked out. I won the family lottery. So being that hero and having my father see it, who, Indian parents are always so worried about, are their kids going to be okay? And all I wanted to show them was like, I'm doing cool stuff. Don't worry about me. So then getting to show him that this little girl who loved Wonder Woman so much when she was a little kid now gets to have this and gets to share this with the world. That was so special. A lot of TV and film started to open up to me, not through the game, but I just feel like energetically there was a shift. There was a moment when I started to realize, oh, my passion for acting and storytelling is finally aligning with my purpose to let people know they're not alone. Because I wasn't just playing this flawless hero. I was playing a hero who was deeply flawed and scared and powerful and amazing and facing all sorts of things. And so it felt very true to life. And all of a sudden I was like, oh yeah, there's this sense of empowerment and this sense of agency. And I really do think that comes from not just playing the role, but from other people getting to play the game and come back to me and tell me how much it meant to them to be able to play that role. And not just people from our demographic and not just people on the spectrum, although there was a lot of that, amazing stories, but also just people who identified with it and were inspired by it. And so when you're getting that kind of feedback from other people, you understand this as a performer, like it's very hard when you don't know if what you're doing is making any difference in anyone's life or anyone is hearing it or anyone cares. Right?
It's impact, Anjali, right? So you just wonder, does it even matter? Is anybody even watching? And I have to, oh my gosh, all these things were coming in my mind as you were talking. First of all, I want to say after so many years, it's so exciting when you have grown up in this country, born and brought up here, South Asian American, and you get to see a South Asian character in a game. First of all, I grew up playing some video games, not an expert like you. But
I'm definitely not an expert. I'm terrible at them. I'm terrible at them.
But to even be able to see that there is this amazing South Asian female, right? I think that in itself. And thank you for sharing about your dad. I'm sorry to hear that. I lost my dad last year. And well, thank you. And it reminded me of, I don't know if this is the immigrant story. And I've been bringing this up lately because I think it's something that's been coming in my mind. It's not something I really was thinking about a lot before, but it is so important to us as South Asians, that's where I can speak from, to be respected and loved and just cared for by our family. I just feel like that, especially for those who are in the entertainment industry, I don't know, like growing up too, I just felt that, like you said, you wanted them to see that you were a part of something bigger and it is going to work out. Not like, what's your backup plan, Anjali?
Okay, that it's going to be okay. Because I think at the core, no matter how they express it, whether they do it very clunkily or very gracefully, like my parents were really great about it. They were always wildly supportive. My dad wanted to be an actor when he was younger, chose to be a doctor like my mom, but both of them did plays and all sorts of stuff. That's how they met. But whether they express it gracefully or clunkily, I think all parents just want their kids to be okay, to be able to take care of themselves and to be happy, to be safe and to be happy. Boom. However you do it. Now, the egotistical part of parenting that might have people being like, yeah, but I want you to be happy by being XYZ, that part I can't speak to. But I know something really shifted for my family when they started to see me happy, which was actually well before, thankfully, well before Symmetric came out. Because I did struggle with depression very, very much when I was younger. And again,
Really?
watching that journey, watching where I started to hand my power to everyone but myself, and then started to claim it back for like, oh yeah, no, this is my job. This is my story. This is all of this stuff. I don't think that happened after the game. I think it happened slightly before, and then the universe delivered, as it has a crazy way of doing.
Always. Wait, I
Oh,
want to ask you about that, Anjali, because I think that's something that whether you're in the industry or not, how did you turn that around for yourself?
you
Because
know,
that's a big statement to say that I went through depression, and there's a lot of people that
yeah,
are going through so many different mental
sure,
health
sure.
issues or dealing with things. So how were you able to turn that around for yourself?
I don't think it was any one thing. I mean, we could do a whole podcast just on that for sure. God knows I spent so many years searching for the answer, and I tried everything. I joke, if I had to swing a dead chicken over my head and throw a pumpkin in the river, I would try it. Whatever it was, I was trying it. And so there were a series of things that shifted. Clearing the decks of whether friendships or love relationships that weren't necessarily reflecting back what was the right thing for me. That was one big part of it. Ultimately, I think a lot of it was me desperately wanting someone else to be in charge of my happiness and being afraid of not being able to do it myself. And I can't tell you, and like again, like I can't tell you any one thing. I began working with a mentor. Well, she became my mentor. I began working with a gal named Kat Stone, who, when I had hit my lowest point, I was like, okay, I got to find someone. And she happened to be the person who fit perfectly with me. And it wasn't a standard therapist, and it wasn't a standard, I don't want to necessarily speak to that because I do think everybody has a different lane. She happened to be the person that worked best with me and her modalities. And the only reason I'm struggling with being eloquent about it is because I think in the past I've given answers that were one part of the equation, but there is no one thing,
Right.
I think, that solved it. Part of why I wrote my book is because there are so many pieces to finding your big, what I call fun size life. We tend to think of fun size as things that are small, but not to me. To me, fun size is like this huge, expansive part of that's inside you. It doesn't matter what size you are. You can be 5 feet tall like me. You can be 20 feet tall. It doesn't matter. Like what matters is that you're built for this amazing life. And life can make us feel small and scared and alone and less than and all of these things. So I think part of it was just giving up fighting and saying, okay, there's nothing wrong with what I feel, but it's what I feel. It's not what is. And if I can stop listening to the stories that I have been telling myself for all of these years, which haven't served me, so I don't know why I'm telling myself all these less than stories. If I can find a way to shift the story, shift the narrative, shift the things I believe and tell myself and surround myself with people who are not yes people, but who just feel more like those are the people I want to either be like or admire, or people whose energy I just want to be around. I remember a very eye-opening moment when I was doing a play, and I had gone out of town to do a play. And at the time, the relationship that I was in was particularly fraught. And I remember walking into rehearsal one day and just going, huh, these people are just like happy to be around me and like nice. And it just the sense of you could surround yourself with a community like that, especially in your own head, and life would be completely different.
So true. And, you know, it's the awareness of that. I love that you were able to become aware of that, because I feel like that's also part of the key of being able to recognize that. And it's interesting to hear this from you because, again, from the outside looking in, one may think everything is perfect for Anjali, right? She's busy. She's got her hands in so many things. And
That's the thing, is I fought myself for it. And I say that, and one of the things I say in my book is I get it. I get that from the outside at this point in my life, you can look at me and be like, well, it's easy for you to say. Sometimes it's easy for me to say now, but it sure as hell wasn't. The industry has a very insidious way of making you feel less than. And the only antidote, I think, to that is realizing that it can't do that to you. You can let it, you can decide, you can reject yourself and say all of this stuff is happening and therefore I'm a loser, because that's rejection. Not getting the job is just disappointment. Rejection is what we take that to mean. So not getting invited to the big event, or not getting the job, or getting whatever it is, there's so much built into the structure of this industry that if you are looking for ways to feel smaller, you will find it.
This
But if
is
you
the
are
way.
looking, yes, this is the way. Oh, Emily Swallow is a dear friend of mine. I love that you said that. But if you are looking for ways to feel powerful and capable, and if you are looking for the things that you can do, there are so many things in this industry as well that don't look flashy, that don't look sexy, that don't look like anything big, but that actually do make a difference. And quite often they are very small things you end up having to do in small groups that won't be on the internet and won't be anywhere else. But that's the stuff that keeps me going in those days when I'm like, wow, I am feeling the weight of less than today. And frankly, one of my wake up calls was after a particularly awful thing had happened, and I remember getting the thought of like, wow, I wish I didn't wake up. I just wish I hadn't woken up. And then the second thought immediately following that was, what the actual fuck? You got to clean this up. This is not okay. You can cry all day, but you got to cry while you're doing the dishes. You can't, this is going to be a wasted life if you spend it wishing you weren't here. Because a bunch of people would be really, 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 really brokenhearted if you were gone. And it's not fair to them that you are thinking this. So get it together. If you're not doing it for yourself, get it together for people around you. And taking the onus off myself to feel better really helped. Like allowing myself to feel like crap and be like, yeah, it's okay if you feel like crap. You just got to go do the dishes. You got to get on the subway. You got to go drive. You got to go do something about it. Just the very slow baby steps of not beating myself up for it, but also not letting myself get away with it.
That's so powerful.
And of course, basic things that we can do to help our dopamine when it's that low. Because I think once we get ourselves, and whether it is actual chemical depression or our behavior and thought processes that have completely depleted our dopamine and our serotonin, there are certainly things, basic things that we can do that you don't think when you're depressed, you just don't think it could possibly make a difference. And it feels like a superhuman feat to take a walk or get out of bed or do something very simple. But those very simple things are really probably the most powerful thing that I did. That's why the mantra was, you can do this, but you got to go do the dishes while you're doing it. You can do this, but you got to take a walk. You can lose your mind, but you got to do something while you're doing it. On the other side of it, it has been a huge motivator to never stop, ever. Just don't stop, which is not necessarily a great thing, but it's been a huge motivator because now that I know, I don't want anyone else to feel that way. All the worst decisions I made in my life, I made because I thought I was alone. And looking back, had I really grasped how much love there was around me and support and how much possibility there was, so much pain could have been avoided. And I know I can't keep people from their own journeys, but if my stories can help people understand that A, you're not alone, and B, there's a way forward, my work here is done.
Well, I want to talk to you about your book because I already, the title of it, I am fun size and so are you. You hit topics like how the hell do I love myself, fabulous FOMO, and so many other things. So in looking at that, how did you explore loving yourself? And tell me one thing that you do love about yourself.
Well, how did I explore loving myself? I remember the day that episode, I filmed that episode because it was such a revelation. I immediately turned on the camera and did the episode, and then I shut it off and I I called my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, but I called him and I was like, I just put out an episode of I Am Fun Size, and I think people are going to think I'm high on cocaine because I was so high energy in that episode. But I was just so excited. I was so excited at this discovery because it felt like suffrage, because I didn't understand. I was like, I don't get it. What the hell does that mean? Love yourself. I don't even like myself sometimes. How am I supposed to love? What does that mean? I can't just suddenly feel it. And then I saw how I treated my dog. And when my dog showed up in my life, that was it. There could be a bone sticking out of my leg. That dog would be walked and fed and snuggled within an inch of his life. And it didn't matter if he did something that I didn't approve of. I wasn't going to yell at him. I was just going to ignore it and train him to do the other thing. I was going to praise him when he did great things. There was no sense of like, you are innately a bad creature because you've done XYZ. And then I was like, well, that's pretty simple stuff. And it's not all feeling, it's action. And we forget so often that love is a verb. We forget so often that to love that's an active thing. You can love yourself even on days when you don't like yourself. That's okay. You're entirely entitled. People do it in relationships all the time. People, you know what I mean? Like with parents and children and couples and whatever. There are many times where you're like, I don't like this moment, but I still love you. So it's okay. We're going to work through it.
But we put pressure on ourselves more than anybody else.
Anybody. And we are harder on ourselves more than anybody. We beat ourselves up because we think, well, I know myself and I know better. And I admit that I hold myself to way higher expectations than I hold anybody else. I think a lot of us do. But now I also clock it and go, okay, let's take a moment to see how realistic this is as a human being to expect this of yourself. Even as the human being you know yourself to be, the high achieving person you know yourself to be. So anyway, that kind of was a revelation. And then I really hate when people say, well, you can't love anybody else until you love yourself, because I think it's bullshit. I learned to love myself by watching how I loved Rick and watching how I loved Charlie. I should clarify that Rick is the husband and Charlie is the dog, because that could go both
for that.
Whereas you guys could possibly not know. Although you did mention Charlie in my bio. But when I started to see how I was doing that and what I was allowing and what I would and would not say to either one of them, or would not let them feel because of me, that was a big revelation. So while I still makes me vomit in my mouth a little bit when people are like, you have to love yourself first before. No, you don't. You don't have to do anything. There are plenty of successful people that beat the crap out of themselves on a daily basis and don't love themselves. I just don't recommend it because it's a lot more fun and it feels a lot better when you give yourself that grace. And it feels a lot better when you realize it's simpler than the world is trying to make it. There are a million self-help gurus out there and all sorts of people, very well-meaning people, who make it, I think, more complicated than it needs to be.
Well, it's just thrown around now. Yeah. Right? I feel like that word is just so casually thrown around now.
Yeah, it's like thrown around like the way manifesting is. And, like there's so much stuff that I'm like, oh, can we find a new word for it? Because it got ruined. I want to use a different word for this.
Let's create one, Anjali. You're very clever that way.
Schmuggelflagen. I don't know why it's suddenly like some kind of German Nordic word. But I do think love is paying attention. It's as simple as that. It's what is getting your attention. What are you paying attention to? Whose needs are you paying attention to? Or am I paying more attention to the needs of everybody else around me? I'm giving them love. That's great. Might not necessarily be giving myself the love I need. But also like just paying attention. You think about as our parents get older, what do they want for gifts? They don't want anything but our time. They want our time and our presence and our attention. It's what kids want. It's what pets want. So why would we think that we wouldn't want that too? Why would we on earth would we think that it's okay to not pay attention to what is going on here? Plus, you're just so much better for the world when you're not expending so much energy fighting the war in your head.
Yes. You have so much more to give. And time is so precious. time is so, so precious in how we're spending it.
Yeah.
I have a few minutes left. So I do want to ask you this, of course. I love seeing all your red carpet appearances. You always have
It's
the
right, this is
most
beyond the
stunning
glam. It's beyond the
dresses.
glam. That's
But
right.
this is beyond the glam. So what I want to ask you is, you make it look so flawless, but is there a fun memory or moment that you have where,
Yeah.
like, we saw the perfection of Anjali, but some
I
faux pas happened?
cannot tell. Okay. The Ms. Marvel premiere. The one big
I
premiere
was there.
mine. Not mine myself, but like my own project. Getting to the other ones for other projects, no problem. Everything goes off flawlessly. Everything's fine. I mean, everything went wrong that day. We put me in my dress. The zipper broke, so they had to sew me in. The shoes, for some reason, even though they were the exact right size, didn't fit, so we taped them to my feet using alien tape. Which I don't know if you've ever found this stuff, but alien tape is like earthquake proof tape.
No, I thank you for that lesson right there. That
It's for
tip.
housewares. It's not something you necessarily want to use on your feet. Because my legs and the rest of my body are a completely different color, because my legs never see the sight of day, the light of day. We had put the makeup artist that I had for that particular event had put this stuff on my legs. She was like, "It's new, it's fantastic, it's the best thing that I've ever used." I got in the car and there were like splotches all over, so we had to kind of cover it with the drape in the posing. So I ended up getting there like 45 minutes late. And by the time I got there, the carpet was slammed. But having to be like, okay, just gotta go. Get there, let's
show up.
make it happen. So that one was probably the most stressful. I mean, I when it's your own project, it's probably more stressful in general. But I had never experienced that kind of an out of body, like, how am I here right now? And so many of these things. And frankly, it feels a lot like doing theater. That night felt a lot like doing theater because, the show must go on. Nobody can know that you tripped and smacked your face right before you came on stage, or you're late for an entrance, or whatever. The quick change didn't go right. So it very much felt like one of those, like, here we are, smoke and mirrors, kids, smoke and mirrors. So that was probably that was definitely the most stressful one. And it was unfortunate because it was the one that I wanted to enjoy the most.
Oh.
I really wanted to like relish the moments and savor everything, but it was just kind of so rushed, and then it was over. And
see, we can't tell this. I was at that premiere, and as an onlooker, like, I would never know. But I will share this with you, Anjali. Had I gone through that situation, I probably would have been very stressed out, because the chaotic part of it, and just like the mental stress, because you've got excitement that's going on, and you're wanting it to be so perfect in a way because you're so excited.
This is actually, this kind of ties up everything that we've been talking about, because it's one of the simple secrets that I unsecreted. Look, secrets out. One of the simple secrets that I learned from acting about living, which is that at any given moment in your day, you can decide to feel something else. You can decide to be present to a different reality. Something horrible may have, I remember specifically a particular event had happened, a really awful event had happened right before I went on stage for something, like right before, like I found out maybe 2 minutes before. You put that on a shelf, get on stage, put it back. You're going to come back to that. It's not going anywhere. You put it on a shelf. You didn't erase it. You're going to come back and you're going to deal with it at an appropriate moment. And when it's not something like that, when it is just feelings that are the thing that you are walking away from, when you shift scenes like that, sometimes that's all your system needs, is for you to go, no, that's not happening right now. I am not. That me beating myself up for XYZ, or this really sad, this thing that I will deal with it at an appropriate moment. But right now I'm going to focus on this. I'm going to focus on this amazing thing that is in my life. I'm going to focus on this amazing person that is in front of me, whatever it is. And sometimes it's just enough of a paradigm shift in the moment to really put your attention, put your love into what's good. And what you give your attention to increases. It just grows. So being able to go like, cool, I'm stressed out beyond belief. I want to cry because I have no idea what I look like and I have to get up in front of all of these cameras, all of these things. But you know what? That's not what my attention's going to be on, because here we are and you got to do the thing. And it ended up being great. And looking back, I know I walked in with that feeling, but I sure as hell didn't walk out with it.
Oh, you get to be present and to choose. And I think it's important to remember that. I'm going to end here with a fun question for you.
Oh, gosh. Okay, I hope it's
If you were able to switch lives with a fictional character in one of your games or TV shows, who would that be and why?
Oh my God, that is so impossible because they're all so cool. Oh, I wish I had prepared for this question. That's a tough one. Who would I want to switch lives with? I mean, look, it's a big giant tease that this video game company has done to me by giving me a character with a teleporter, because that's always been the superpower that I have wanted, is teleportation, because I would get so much done. And I would be able to see all my friends, and I'd be able to see my whole family and go from country to country, and it would be fine and be in two places at once. So I don't want to switch my life, because my life was pretty good and I really love my husband, I really love my dog, I really love my family. So I'd like to keep all of that, but I would very much like to steal Symmetra's superpower. That very, 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 very much like to do, because that's been a lifelong dream. But yeah, it's crazy. I'm gonna think of this, and I'm gonna be like 3:00 in the morning. I'm gonna text you.
You're going to be texting me, right? Well, listen, I would not mind teleporting because I think that's a lot of fun. And you're welcome to text me. We'll share that with
it's this character that I
played. By the way, it was this. Anjali, it has been so much fun speaking with you. Where can people find you on social media?
You can find me all over at Sweet Anj, which is the word sweet with 3 E's. Long story, high school nickname. The word sweet with 3 E's and then ANJ. That's on all of the platforms. At Facebook, I'm Anjali Bhimani. And then you can also find me on YouTube, Sweet Anj, same thing. You can find the I Am Fun Size series. You can find the Puppy Roll, my big charity event that Charlie inspired. And then, that's pretty much it. I'm very active on the internet. So if people want to get a hold of me, that's a pretty easy place to get me.
Yes, she is. And bless your heart for doing Puppy Roll, because I think it's just such a great cause to be able to support our furry friends. Yeah. And I would love for you to state and complete the sentence, the real me is.
The real me is really, really, really happy to be alive.
That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Anjali Bhimani, I have just had a great time talking to you. Thank you for going beyond the glam with me and sharing your journey and some of the things that you've been through, and how, again, we just see what's on screen, but there's so much to us, and to humanizing, who we are. And then there's more to the on-camera presence, I think, and recognizing that is so important.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing that. It's really, really cool. And I'm really excited both for the world to have your podcast and for you to have it, because it's as beautiful as you are.
Oh, well, your friendship and love has meant so much to me. So I appreciate you. And to all of those who are listening or watching, thank you so much for joining us on Beyond the Glam. I'm Rasha Goel. Do not forget to subscribe, like, follow, comment, and of course, share. Let's spread the love, let's spread the joy, and let's spread these messages to help build one another. And I'll join you next week for another episode of Beyond the Glam.